when you were then, kind of had made this shift and you're working with clients and you're able to hold that space with them and for them to feel that connection with you, did it make the process for them? I'm sure it made the process for them a little bit easier to walk through when they had you by their side.
I think that the best story I have is this woman who I had represented who would have stayed married forever. Life was comfortable. Her marriage was not good. It wasn't horrible. He had an affair and he filed for divorce and she was forced to deal with this. Had he withdrew the divorce, she would have said fine and she would have stayed married forever. She had so much fear around it. And about a year after her divorce, she emails me back and she said, I am happier than I ever thought possible. And I didn't even realize how unhappy my marriage was until I got on the other side. And I'm dating again. And I went back to work and I'm traveling and I have this amazing life. And I'm like, bingo, that's it. And if it's like those messages, and she just kept saying like, okay, I believe you. I believe you. One step forward. Okay, I'm going to do this. And it was like just taking those little steps and having like someone on your shoulder just be like, you got this. Like there's nothing that is going to prevent you from the life that you want, even though you have this kind of plot twist you didn't expect. And I think that's the difference. I think most lawyers are kind of like sign the line, do the black, white, and all of this. But when you start to talk to clients and like almost coach them as to what happens after that, I think it's a shift. It's a shift. And like, I love my clients because their relationship that we have is a little bit different than just like, here's your file and we stick it in a cabinet. Like there's that connection. And so, and I think that that's part of like my duty, my obligation and responsibility as what I do and why I do it is to help in the ways beyond just signing a contract.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Jessica Papineau Show, Living Aligned, Styled with Purpose. And today I have a treat for you. I have Renee Bauer here with me, and I just can't wait to introduce her to all of you. Renee is the founder of Happy Even After Family, a law firm dedicated to helping people through divorce. She is the author of She Who Wins, a personal development book that won the Reader's Choice Award. She is also the founder of Parent Copilot, an app that helps parents communicate better and de-escalate conflict. Thank you so much for coming in today, Renee. And Renee is so much more than her bio. I'm just so excited that you're here. Wait, Renee and I met way back. Gosh, when was it? Like 3 years ago?
Yeah, it's probably about that long now.
Yeah. And so, I mean, of course, Renee has this amazing business. She's constantly expanding, constantly growing, bringing on new things. But really at the heart of it, like she is this woman that attracts the most incredible powerhouse women into her world. And so Renee was the beginning of my journey to finding women like me. Really, you were that first person for me. So I just want to thank you. Even after 3 years, the women that I met at She Who Wins, your summit, back when you launched your amazing book, She Who Wins, some of those women are still a really big part of my life, and I just reconnected with another one of them, Cheryl Wood.
Oh my gosh, yes. I'm so excited to be back here. It's been a minute since we caught up, but I keep hearing that story from that summit, and I love it because I had no idea what I was doing planning it.
You looked like you did.
No, I just have this circle of amazing women around me. I'm like, what if we all just get in a room together and connect with each other? And that was the real intent behind it. But the funny thing is about that is the size that it was. Didn't allow me to spend the time connecting that day. And at the end, I'm like, oh my God, I had all these people there. I didn't even get to really have a one-on-one conversation with them. But so I was thrilled and am thrilled when I continue to hear that people made some really good friends from that.
Yes. So you have your hands in so many things, and you're this woman that has built this amazing practice. And you're a divorce lawyer and have been for how many years now?
Too many. Like 22 or something like that. You
Yeah,
stop counting after
22.
a
But you like
while.
to keep you like to keep things interesting.
Yeah.
So I love how you have weaved in your story, your personal story, and what you learned from your clients over all these years to refine your craft and also bring light to things when it comes to, divorce and finding yourself, and bringing that to light. Your book is incredible. So those that are listening, you have to read She Who Wins. I had many people from my community. We even had like a little book club here in my home. I had local people from Sarasota, and they loved your book. They were ready to dye their hair purple after reading your book.
I love that.
So, can you share a little bit about your story, how you got started, and these different, like how you refined what you do based upon how you lived?
It's funny because I think that part of the story that you talk about has only been the last 5 years. It started in 2020 because everything that happened prior to that was an entirely different version of myself. And early on as a lawyer, like in my head, you have to show up a certain way, which means you always have to be professional and perfect and you have to put on this whole act and look. And I never talked about any of the stuff that I had gone through being twice divorced, which was the biggest source of shame that I had. Massive shame, massive guilt. And I, on its face, looked like I had my life together as a business owner, as a divorce lawyer, as success, whatever that word means. But I was like so broken inside. And then I went on a good friend's podcast who said to me, come over, we'll get some sushi and I'm going to stick the mic on you and I'm going to ask you questions. And I'm thinking, all right, I don't listen to podcasts. I have no idea what to expect. We had a couple drinks. We had some sushi. She clips the mic on and she's like, so let's talk about your divorce. And at that, and never in my life have I spoken openly about it. And I was just like, I just vomited all of my story. And after that was over, I called up my mother. I'm like, I'm so sorry. There's a podcast episode where I say things that might feel hurtful, but it was my truth. And at that point on, I had people reach out to me who listened to it and they said, thank you for talking about your story. Thank you for being messy. Thank you for being raw. And I was like, oh my God, I'm doing this all wrong. Like, people don't want that perfect version. They want the real one. And that was the turning point for me to start to weave in my past, my history, my own shame, and impact other women, men too, who are going through divorce and talk about it at a different level. And that changed everything. And that's part of you were on that journey of that connection of sort of the unbecoming of who I was previously to who I am now. And it's the messiest, most real version of myself. And it's also the one that's the most elevated, that I would say is the most successful and has just like skyrocketed everything in my life in a way that I could never imagine by simply being honest.
Yeah. It's just so incredible how just telling your truth, uh, it can be so powerful to other women, that we look at and we go, oh, she's got it all going on. I
Yeah.
remember when I walked into the summit that day, and I had the VIP ticket, and I was in this manifesting state of, I wore like this, really the suit that made me feel really good. I sat in the front row and in my head, I was like, I am like Renee Bauer and I'm on a stage right now and I can share my story. You inspired me so much telling the raw and the real, because when I think of a woman that has a practice and how many years? 20
Something, 20 something.
30 something years, has, as a divorce lawyer, has her own practice, has other lawyers that work for her. There's this idea, and I remember seeing your picture, it was on something. Maybe I Googled you. I had seen your picture before even seeing your podcast. And I was like, oh, she's powerful. Oh, I really want to know her. But at that time, it was like, can I be in the rooms? Like, do I belong there?
No.
And the thing that you did when you got up on stage is you made every woman in that room feel like they belonged there.
Oh,
From the VIP in the very front row to, I remember, it's almost going to make me cry because
I
I'm
was gonna
thinking
say you're
back.
making me
I'm
emotional
thinking
right
back to
now.
this time, and I remember like turning around and seeing the people in the back. And there was this one girl in the back row, and she was like crying when you told your story, and she's like frantically writing in her notebook. So I didn't intend on like bringing that up, but it was
Yeah.
you're so powerful. And if you could just, how deep can you tell your story? Because can you give a little snippet of what it was? Because I do believe that every person that actually like pivots and like they're going through the motions of their life, growth, if they're in corporate, they're on the leaderboard, they're success
Yeah.
driven, all this stuff. But then something shifts and they surrender
Yeah.
and something shifted. Can you share like what broke you open?
Yeah. Um, it was a second marriage, and it was one when I had gotten out of my first one that was just fine. My husband is ex-husband is a good man. He is the
Yeah.
father to my son, and we were not a good match. And recognizing and having the guilt that I had a 2-year-old at the time and I was breaking up the family was really, really hard. And all I wanted in the worst way was to feel worthy and loved. And you can always dip into like what happened in childhood and things like that, but there were reasons that brought me to that place. And I met somebody who ended up being as toxic can be. And he broke me down. I mean, if we're talking about gaslighting, and I don't like to use labels, but he broke me down in a very slow, deliberate way that I woke up a year into our marriage and I did not know who I was. The level of criticism and disparagement making me feel ugly, making me feel unworthy, making me question whether I was the problem because I had those conversations. Like maybe it's me. Because when you have someone saying to you, well, this is, you're the one who's marriage white, maybe this is a you problem,
Yeah.
um, really had me questioning everything. And there were some things that happened that for me were like the end. And I knew that if I didn't walk away, I would never look at myself in the mirror again and recognize who I was. I was always thought I was confident and outspoken and all of those things. And I found myself not that person. I was keeping to myself. I was not seeing friends because it was easier than dealing with the wrath of the accusations of what I might have actually been doing, which I wasn't. And and I had been only married a year and a half, and I knew that I needed to make that fast decision to walk away. And it was so, so hard because in my head, I had all of these people saying to me, I told you so.
Mm,
What's wrong with you? It was like, and in the legal community, you have people who gossip and talk.
yeah.
And that was this person who was all buttoned up and built a successful business and went to court. And I was always like, the hair done and the heels on and all of that was like, I didn't have my stuff together. And it was like really falling apart. And it was really, really hard when I finally walked away to rebuild after that and decide, like, I'm worthy of this. What am I going to do with this? I can hold on to it and be angry and bitter, or I can take that and do something else. And I decided to take that and let me see what I can spin this into. And it's so funny though, Jessica, because as like I was going through some of these stories and their stories I share in the book and on stage, and I never in a million years thought that I would repeat any of them. And the fact that, like, from that gave me so much so much information to then look at someone else who's going through that and be like, I get it. I've been through it. Like, I understand what it's like to feel
Mhm.
those things. And here's my version of that story. And my parents were at that event and they didn't
I
know.
remember I met your mom
Yeah.
at that
And so
event. I
she
remember.
told me because she was sitting in the front row and I hadn't really told her all of the stories. And there was one particular one, and I used a particular word, and I just looked over and she was just sobbing. And because I think it brought up a lot of things for her too. And I think that it's like my story is that. But for everyone has that thing where they get to a point in their life where they feel so broken and they don't know where they're going to go from there. And everyone, I think, connects with being in that moment of their own version of what that looks like. And I, as I was starting to speak on stages and watch people and learn from their craft and be in awe of storytelling. And I realized that the people who I most connected with were the ones who were a little bit messy. Like they wouldn't have it all completely together. And I'm like, I think that's the way that people want to hear from speakers. And
Mhm.
I vowed, I'm like, if I do this, I'm going to be really authentic about it. And it took a little bit
Mhm.
of time because I first tried to do like the perfect versions and like, the PowerPoint, all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm actually really bad at doing it that way. And I'm much better of speaking in a way that's just like, here it is, laid out. And you also get to a certain point in your life, a certain age, where you're just like, I don't really care. Like, what if someone's going to have an issue with that if I use this word on stage? And it's just part of, it's not because I'm swearing, it's an integral part of that story. Um, and so, and that's the idea that really over those past few years, it was like that. I'm not going to live any other way but that way.
Yeah.
And it's kind of liberating and it's like freeing to be like,
Freedom.
right? Like, it doesn't matter if someone has an opinion about me.
Yeah.
That's none of my business. The
Yeah.
only thing I can do is act in integrity, surround myself with amazing people who are really committed to lifting each other up. And there's so many women who want to do that. And being intentional about cutting out that noise of those who are not part of that circle.
Yeah, and it was I remember, just seeing the women that were even on stage with you that were coming on and off. And that was the entire summit was this authenticity. And some of the speakers were like really seasoned speakers, but they
Yeah.
spoke truth into everyone that was there. And I just, the culture of what you've created is this powerful authenticity, because I think some women think, especially if they're in the corporate world and then they have a home life and that it's separate, that it's like, I'm this way, this strong, powerful, hold it all together woman over here, but then I'm different when I can just relax and be myself.
Right.
But really, you've really inspired people to show them the power of bringing in who you authentically are, that power within you. And it is power, that authenticity. It may feel vulnerable to bring it up, but it made you better at what you did, but it also brought in so many powerful women, and look at what's happened as a result. It's incredible. I have created something really special for you, my Power Presence Index. It's a quick quiz designed to help you uncover the 6 elements shaping your unique presence. And trust me, the insights are transformational. In just a few minutes, you'll discover exactly how to align your style with your goals so that you can show up powerfully, speak with confidence, and truly be seen. This is my gift to you, because confidence doesn't start in your closet. It starts with clarity. Get your personal Power Presence Index now at csjstyling.com/power and begin your journey to becoming truly unstoppable.
It's that word vulnerability is it's so interesting because my husband and I, we've been married, my third husband, to just put it out there. We've been married 10 years now, and it is the relationship I ever dreamed of. But early on, he said to me that you have this wall around you and you're not vulnerable. And he called me out on it. And I was just like, well, what are you talking about? Of course, I get defensive. And then I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I am not vulnerable. And there's a whole reason of, right, like that protection and feeling
Yeah.
like I can't show that vulnerability. And it was like, that was the turning point of once I allowed myself first to be vulnerable with him in the relationship because it was
Yeah.
safe, and then be vulnerable in the public. And it's also safe because I can choose not to pay attention to anyone else on the outside. But it's like, it's a game changer. And I think that we as like, especially as women, like we feel like if we're vulnerable, we're weak, right? Like we like that. That's a superpower.
It
Like who
is.
knew, right?
Yeah.
I wish I had that lesson 20 years ago.
When you went through everything that you went through and you were broken down, the marriage that you you'd been married a year, you like everything fell apart, you were brought to your knees worrying about what other people might think of you, but also like, you know, just being beaten down, and you were at this point of, of this like surrendering to, really having to take a look at how you were living and what that truth
Mhm.
was. When you were at that point and you built yourself back up and surrounded yourself with the right people, and you really did the work around, getting mentally, emotionally strong again, how did that impact your practice and working with people that were in the midst of their divorces?
Yeah, so it changed how I interacted with people and connected with them. And I no longer was afraid to share that story and some of the
Mm.
stories as it was appropriate, where I would never do that because that's unprofessional. You don't do that. And a lot of my favorite clients anyway are the woman who I used to be. And so
Mm.
being able to like speak that to them and help them realize that it feels hard right now and there's so much uncertainty and I get the anxiety, but imagine what life could be on the other side. And imagine the peace, imagine financial stability and independence. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Like it might be hard to get there, but it's possible, and anything is possible. And that's when you go through something like that, when you've hit that bottom and you're like, now what? I broke my family apart. I'm a two-time marriage failure. I'm like, I have no friends because I'm not from the state that I live in, and all my friends were attached to the marriage. And when you come back from that, then you realize there's nothing I can't handle, which is so incredibly powerful. And it's like, and you and I spoke, and I had some stuff happening in my business a couple years ago, and it's like, all right, I got this. It's like I'm gonna roll up my sleeves, like you've got nothing on me. And that's incredible because everything now, every road bump, every roadblock, every rejection is an opportunity to learn
Mhm.
something or
Mhm.
pivot and do something else that's even better.
Mhm.
And like if you
Mhm.
have that perspective around it, like nothing can take you out again.
Yeah, I love that. So when you were then, kind of had made this shift and you're working with clients and you're able to hold that space with them and for them to feel that connection with you, did it make the process for them? I'm sure it made the process for them a little bit easier to walk through when they had you by their side.
I think that the best story I have is this woman who I had represented who would have stayed married forever.
Yeah.
Life was comfortable. Her marriage was not good. It wasn't horrible. He had an affair and he filed for divorce and she was forced to deal with this. Had he pulled out withdrew the divorce, she would have said fine and she would have stayed married forever. Had so much fear around it. And
Mm.
about a year after her divorce, she emails me back and she said, I am happier than I ever thought possible. And I didn't even realize how unhappy my marriage was until I got on the other side. And I'm dating again. And I went back to work and I'm traveling and I have this amazing life. And I'm like, bingo, that's it. And if it's like those messages, and she just kept saying, like, okay, I believe you. I believe you. One step forward, one step forward. Okay, I'm going to do
Yeah.
this. And it was like just taking those little steps and having like someone on your shoulder just be like, you got this. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing that is going to prevent you from the life that you want, even though you have this kind of plot twist you didn't expect. And I think that's the difference. I think most lawyers are kind of like sign the line, do the, the black, white,
Mm.
all of this. But when you start to talk to clients and like almost coach them as to what happens after that, I think it's a shift. It's a shift in, like, I love my clients because
Yeah.
their relationship that we have is a little bit different than just like, here's your file and we stick it in a cabinet. Like there's that connection. And so and I think that that's part of like my duty, my obligation and responsibility as what I do and why I do it, is to help in the ways beyond just signing a contract.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure you have people that have come to you and they're not quite certain yet if they want to move through with the divorce. What are like some indicators to you that it's like, okay, this relationship, like, because you do this all the time, you do this for a living, you've talked to so many people. I'm sure there's some red flags. Like, how do you discern? And of course, you can't really insert your opinion, but how do you discern, like, this seems like something maybe they need to work there, they might, perhaps they want to work out, or the red flag of, oh my gosh, this is over. I just want them to see that possibility that it could be better on the other side.
With one simple question. So I always, when someone's sitting there, it becomes very clear which direction, whether there's a little bit of hope or not. But I
Yeah.
always say to them, is this the relationship that you want your son or daughter to have in their adulthood?
Mhm.
And 9 out of 10 times they will say absolutely not. And then and then I say, so why is it good enough for you but
Mm.
not for them? And that's usually the answer. Sometimes I'll have someone come in and they're nervous and scared, but there's maybe a little bit of hope. And I say, go to marriage counseling. But usually by the time someone comes to see me, it's been years of festering
Mm.
breakdown and toxicity, or them trying to wrestle with the idea of what their future looks like with their spouse. So, but flipping it and putting it, not like holding the mirror up to themselves, but to their children,
Yeah.
is often the thing that gets them to say, "Oh, yeah, like it's not good enough for my daughter, but I'm holding on to this." Because then the next question is, well, if your daughter is seeing this, guess what kind of relationship she's going to have? You're mirroring what she is going to also seek out and put up
Mm.
with, or not put up with, like whatever that is. But you're a reflection of what she views a healthy relationship. And it doesn't have to be a bad relationship. Sometimes there's just a disconnect. Sometimes it's just come
Yeah.
to completion and there isn't love, but there's civility and maybe there's respect, but it's still time to move on. And that's okay too. And I think that that's the hardest one to grapple with, because it's easy if someone's
Mhm.
abusive
Mhm.
or an
Mhm.
alcoholic or
Mhm.
there's an affair. But it's really, really hard to make that decision when everything is fine and it's still not okay inside of you.
Yes. And now you were just talking about, children and your kids, and I'm from a divorced family and then a blended family. And you're always doing something new, but you've expanded, how you can really serve you're creating an app
Yeah.
right now, right? And this has to do with co-parenting and, because I'm sure you've seen all the ways that people are, trying to navigate this over the years. Can you share? 'Cause you're such a visionary. You're like, "Oh, I see."
Yeah. I
a
mean,
vision-
it's it's my fault sometimes. Shiny object syndrome.
Yeah, can you share a little bit about that and how you kind of came to this?
Yeah. So I had a client email me and say that my spouse just emailed me this and forwarded me the email. How do I respond? And
Yeah.
so I kicked back a response, and then this went back and forth a few more times. And I'm like, you are spending a whole lot of money for me to tell you how to appropriately respond to this email. And and then after that situation, I closed my laptop and I'm like, there has to be a better way. And I had the idea of, what if there was an app that could almost be a co-parent coach, because that's what I was to this person at the time,
Yeah.
where they could input their separation agreement, their parenting plan, and have a co-parent coach customize their
Mm.
experience and help them formulate appropriate de-escalating texts and emails back to their spouse and keep track of it all, so that they didn't need to run to a lawyer and pay them X amount of dollars to be that in-between person. And courts often will say to somebody, go see a co-parent coach, or they will tell people to use that person as the intermediary. And I'm thinking, God, that money could be better spent for the kids' college, and
Yeah.
there has to be another way. And we have technology, and with the boom of AI, it was really an opportunity to give these clients and people who need that assistance something, so they didn't have to run to their lawyer every single time they needed to respond to maybe an irate or angry or inappropriate text from their
That's
ex-spouse.
incredible. And this doesn't exist yet. Like no one else has thought of this?
So there's communication apps where the
Yeah.
two people can communicate, and it's like a hub for communication, and it tracks it. This is different in that you can customize the experience to your particular parenting plan. And then you can invite your spouse in and then formulate answers. So most of the communication apps are, just think of like texting, and it lives in that little like worlds that it could be
Right.
downloaded. But this is helping you actually formulate responses, and it's giving you coaching tips. Like, so if you put in a text that you felt like it triggered you, then it will respond and say, I understand why this is frustrating to you, but take a deep breath. And it actually like gives you live coaching, and then helps you formulate that response and reply. So that's a new version of an old model that others have had.
That's incredible that you're touching on both like the emotional piece of it and the processing of, like triggers. Of course, like, when people get divorced, of course, just their voice could be a trigger.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
then the action steps to take. That's incredible. And when is this going to be going live?
So it's actually in Apple right now. So we just got approved about a week ago. So it is there for anyone's use.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, Renee, and just
Of
pouring
course.
into the people that are listening and some are watching. Many of the women that I serve and that, follow me and listen to my podcast, they are, you and I, like these
Yeah.
powerful women that are doing really big things. And, the fact that you kind of bring to light the things that are really vulnerable and that we, may feel shame around because we don't want to share it and make ourselves look like we're not powerful. Just the way that you bring it to light and articulate it and show how you use this vulnerability and sharing to, to your advantage, to leverage it, to be even more powerful. It's so inspiring. And those that are listening, I highly recommend that you go and you follow Renee. We're going to have all of your things linked up here. What is your Instagram handle? Because a lot of my people are on Instagram.
It's at Ms. Renee Bauer.
That's okay. And also, if someone wants to get in touch with you, maybe there's someone that's listening that is, either in the midst of a divorce and needs an attorney, or maybe is not quite sure if they're ready to get divorced, but they need some type of counsel to understand, what their options are. What's the best way to connect with
Yes,
you?
we actually have a free workbook on our website that you can just download. And it says Connecticut workbook, but quite frankly, it's just a planning, and it's for any state. It's all about starting to get prepared and what documents to put together and how to think about parenting plans. Totally free. You can go to familylawyerct.com and download that. And then from there, you can connect with me in a few different ways there.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay, so we'll make sure that that is linked up as well. And thank you again so much for coming in. And I'm just so excited for my listeners to get all the details and learn everything about you. So go and follow Renee. If you are going through a divorce or you have questions around, is it time, to leave your wife or your husband and you're not sure, please go and download this free gift that
Thank
Renee
you
has
for
for
having.
you.
Thank you. I mean, you made me teary. So started off to say I was not expecting an emotional reaction to what you were saying, but that's the power of connection. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share your space with you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.